Hello and welcome to the Creative Jungle podcast. I'm your host Sam.
And I'm Diana.
And we are all about bringing creativity to life and business.
With each episode, we'll be speaking to artists, entrepreneurs, innovators, creatives on how they live creative lives and bring creativity to their business. Let's begin. Hi, it's Diana here. Just to let you know, this podcast was recorded in early August. Loads has happened since then, and the podcast episode was a bit delayed, but the book is actually now out, and you can find out more about it on www.bighairparade.com.
Today on the podcast, we have a couple of very special guests who many of you will be familiar with. We're going to talk about how they created a children's picture book together, which is being self-published at the end of August, called The Big Hair Parade.
Yes.
It's all about Afro hair and addressing the universal girl's struggle with feeling good about the way they look with what hair they have. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a bestseller, I have no doubt. And my young nieces and nephews love it. And it's incredibly colourful and well illustrated. So, big welcome to Diana Muendo, M.Y.O and Creative Jungle co-creator, as well as being my fiancée and normal podcast co-host. The questions are coming her way this time. And also the brilliantly creative Abby Hobbs, who is a professional illustrator, M.Y.O host, and a fountain of ideas and positive energy.
Mm-hmm.
She's also
very fountain.
And she's also in the middle of renovating a camper van, and she was on the BBC recently, which we'll get into a little bit later on.
Such a melee of things, Abby.
We're lucky to have you both. So Dana wrote the book and Abby illustrated it, but it was very much a collaboration both ways. So let's get started. And I should say a big shout out to Agathe, who helped with asking lots of questions. She was very interested in both of your stories.
Amazing.
So some of the questions that are included were from her. Okay, so we know a lot about the background of you, Diana, from the first episode of the Creative Jungle podcast. So tell us, what was the main driver for writing your own children's book? And why did you decide you could even do it with everything else that you have going on?
It's so weird being on this side of the interview, being interviewed by you. So, Big Hair Parade, or rather, why did I want to write a children's book? The idea actually all started when I read a children's book to your nephews.
Oh, yeah.
Was it on Christmas Eve? That's when it really sparked, because I just thought it was a really nice story. I can't remember what it was called, about squirrels, and it was just so lovely, and it was so nice seeing how they enjoyed it, and I really enjoyed reading it. And then just that little message at the end, or the little kind of moral at the end, I just thought it was actually quite magical and powerful. You read these stories every day or every so often, and it really seeps into the kids' memories, and they learn something valuable from it each time. So that was kind of when it sparked. And then previously, me growing up, I grew up on fables, so many fables from my mom and my auntie and my grandma, and I used to love hearing them, and I'd always ask for a new one, and they'd always make one up as well. It was such a big thing to make up stories. When I was younger, especially where I grew up in Kenya, people used to always make up stories with a big kind of strong moral code inside. So anyway, this kind of combination literally on Christmas Day, after reading, going down the stairs, I just thought, oh God, I really love stories. I should really write one.
Nice.
And that's literally it. That's where it came from. And then I thought, 2020, when doing my goals, writing a children's book is going to be one of them.
And then you did so good with that you wrote two.
And I've written two, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you just think when you have a stroke of inspiration, you should just follow it through, because otherwise it just disappears. And then, so I was like, I wrote it down on my card and I was like, I'm going to write it. And actually, to Abby's point, the story that actually came in my mind first was a completely different story.
Yeah.
And in writing that story, the idea for Big Hair Parade came in.
Yeah, I think you're really good at that when you just have goals. Like Diana has a little sheet in the bedroom where she looks at it every day, pretty much kind of 4 or 5 things she wants to do in that year.
Yeah.
I think that's probably really helped with getting focus on this.
A little bit, yeah. I think, I don't know, I was just so excited. You get an idea and you just feel really excited by it. And you just think, I really have to just do something about it, because many times you just sit there with not enough exciting ideas. So I think,
And creativity breeds creativity, right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
You wrote a book and you birthed a new book.
Another book. Yeah, exactly.
It's definitely the more you do, the more confidence you get with new ideas that you have. It's just each time it feels more realistic for it to be done.
Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of the first time is the hardest, and then it's like, I've written one.
I can easily write another. Another idea comes in. And actually with that, I wrote the 2, and then I showed Abby both, and because I was thinking, who would I want to do this illustration with? I can't draw exactly how I want it to be drawn. And I floated both ideas past Abby. Do you remember Abby? And I was like,
I do indeed.
And yeah, we kind of read through them both. And Abby, I think you were like, I think I prefer the Big Hair Parade. I think there's more we could do there.
Well, you know what? It wasn't like a case of preferring it, because like, I don't want to give anything away about the other story, because that'll be coming out soon and
soonish too.
But yeah, it was just when I read the Big Hair Parade, like, it seemed so poignant for now. And this was even before George Floyd. Yeah. This was when did we look over it? It was before COVID. It was like
if there was such a time, yes. Yeah, it was February. Yeah.
But at the same time, like, it just seemed like part of it needed to be told. Like, there are kids, especially in England, in the UK, then they need to have a story where they get introduced to kids of all different races and histories and hair.
And hair. Exactly.
So before we go into the ins and outs of the book, Abby, tell us more about you, just for everybody that's listening. How did you end up becoming a full-time creative from somebody that studied chemistry and psychology in university? But and you've illustrated office spaces, children's books, worked as graphic designer. Tell us what the journey's been like and how have you ended up here?
Oh my goodness. Well, how long we got? No, I'm joking.
All the time in the world.
Yeah. Stop me if I'm rambling. All right. What happened? I always loved drawing. I loved drawing as a kid. Like, that was my escape. That was me at like grown up dinners, just doodling away and having a great time copying all the illustrations out of the kids' books. And it turned out that I was all right at art at school, which I'm very grateful for, because I feel like kids these days, you kind of, I've watched my nephews and nieces go to secondary school and say, like, I'm not good at art. And it's like, well, you're 11. How do you even know? Yeah. Like, I feel like people get pigeonholed so early, and I was very fortunate to be pigeonholed as an arty person, and I'm very grateful for that. And I don't think it should exist, but that's what happened. I think I drew a mushroom particularly well.
But it is interesting that it can be just one thing, one little image or something, and someone gives you a bit of encouragement and kind of goes, you're actually quite good at that, and then you get confidence and do more of it.
Exactly. And we just need to be more cheerleadery for all the kids.
Yeah.
All the places. No one can know what they're doing when they're 11. But anyway, I wanted to be a baker so I could eat all the bread when I was 11. But here we are. I'm an illustrator instead. But sometimes I eat all the bread. Anyway, see, rambling. I basically pursued art to like A-level and really, really enjoyed it. And then for some reason, I decided that I wouldn't be able to get a job. I think when I finished school, it was 2008. It had just been the financial crisis, and my parents are super supportive. they would never have pushed me in any direction, but just kind of my confidence was lost. And I was like, okay, I'll go do science. That seems like a sensible thing to do. And what I've learned is actually I'm not very sensible and I shouldn't have done that. But I muddled through and I had a great time at uni. And yeah, I do love science. That is like undisputed. I don't think I'm very good at chemistry. That was definitely an error. But yeah, I went to uni, did some science, came out, did some science, and got a job. Really, like I moved to London. That was the first thing that happened, and it happened because at the end of uni, everyone, especially all the adults in your life, are like, "What are you going to do when you finish university?" And I just kept saying, "I'm going to go to London because the streets are paved with gold."
Yeah.
Like, it is so true. It's
big lights, opportunities.
And I just kept saying it like in such a facetious way that eventually when it came to the end of uni, I was like, well, I'll just move to London. So I moved in with a couple of friends and spent all of the internet in Starbucks at the time trying to find a job. Very, very nearly became an Apple genius.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like, why on earth was I doing that? Anyway, and then I got a little job at a tech company, which was U-Switch, but it was very like startup vibe, and very into promoting people up into what they wanted to do. And they kept asking me. I started off as a data analyst, and I love spreadsheets to this day. That is the thing that has enabled me to do my creative business is that I love spreadsheets. I've
seen the kind of expense and income tracker that you have.
Yeah.
It's lots of colourful
boxes
and very well laid out.
I've got a charity tracker. I've got all the stuff. I've got nested if statements. oh, it's a treat. So that was useful.
Yeah.
But yeah, they kept asking me what I wanted to do, and I kept saying, "Oh, I'd like to do graphic design," and they'd be like, "Well, that's quite a stretch for data analysis. Like, well, why don't you go into marketing?" And I'd be like, "Okay." And then they'd ask me again, and I'd be in marketing, and they'd be like, "What would you like to do now?" And I'd be like, "I'd like to be a graphic designer." And eventually, I think I spent 3 years saying that in every 6-monthly catch up.
Wow!
And they finally were like, "Okay, fine, get off our case about this. You can retrain to be a graphic designer." So I went on a few courses and I like shadowed some great people in the U-Switch design team and ended up kind of just designing anything anyone would let me, which turned out to mainly be t-shirts at the beginning. And then,
oh, really?
Yeah, did a lot of t-shirts for conferences. And then like as I got further into the graphic design stuff, I was designing web pages and I didn't enjoy it as much as the t-shirts.
Interesting.
It's a bit more restrictive, I guess, is it? Because
there are a lot of like
and,
rules and data and asking people what they like, and I just like just creating weird light bulbs on t-shirts that no one asked for. So I'd like learned all these skills, and then I thanked them by leaving. And my partner Mark and I bought our first camper van, and just basically left our jobs and drove to Portugal.
Amazing.
And yeah, it's just completely bonkers, but that's kind of, I mean, if you're not doing something mad, then find more mad things. That's that's my motto apparently as of about 5 seconds ago.
Wow. And then so is it at this point that you started then, dabbling with illustrations and getting more,
Yeah, I was like updating people, and Instagram was a thing. I mean, it definitely was a thing before then, but it was a thing. I was drawing on the ferry to kind of like keep me preoccupied, and then I was drawing our routes, and I was drawing about how the roads were really wibbly in Portugal, and I was posting it all the time to my Instagram, and my glorious friends were loving it. And I mean, there was. I'm sure there was sometimes just being nice, but I was really enjoying like the feedback and creating. And it was like when I was designing the t-shirts at U-Switch, and I was like, this is great actually. Why don't I just do this? And like any kind of creative business, you kind of have to have 10 different things up your sleeve. So I still had the graphic design. I still love graphic design. Like, it is not as much as I love illustration, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But like, there's something really nice about plugging away. It's a bit more like mathsy graphic design. There's a lot more weird hands mathsy.
Yeah.
This is a podcast. People can't see
People can't see the weird hands.
Picture giant hands if you're listening.
Yeah. Well, illustrating is more free flowing. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
and
cool
so
to have both.
I just relabeled myself as an illustrator and very much went from like fake it till you make it, and just carried on illustrating. I did a few people's wedding invites, wedding table plans, started doing little commissions for people's babies. And then really soon on, my partner's brother, Andy, got me a gig painting an entire wall in an office.
I saw this, I was looking on your LinkedIn yesterday.
Yeah.
It's a big, massive room. It's really cool.
So huge. Like, it was 10 meters long, like 2 meters high, and I'm quite short. I had to get a step ladder, and it was chalkboard paint black everywhere. And then I was doing quotes. It was for a pet food company. I can't remember what they're called. Doesn't matter. But Pause. But back then they were called, no, I can't remember that either.
Yeah.
Anyway. So they wanted some motivational quotes for their breakout area. That's what it's called, breakout area. And like little animals and quotes and things. So I kind of like drew them up and then borrowed a projector and honestly faked it till I made it, because I had never drawn on a wall before. I'd never done a commission for a company before. And I was just like, yeah, totally. I'll be in there Monday to Friday. Fine. And I turned up on the first day, and the head of the company was there and said hi, and I freaked out and ran away. When he said hi. I said hi back. I did the awkward like, hi, hello. I was like, oh, actually, I haven't had any breakfast. I ran away and got a croissant. And then I was eating the croissant like, I don't have time for this croissant. I've got to make a 10 by 2 meter wall. But I'm kind of taking a little breath, because I definitely just got this amazing opportunity, and I didn't quite know how it'd come across it, apart from Andy obviously helping me out with it.
That's amazing.
Were they helping you, or sorry, were they still in the room when you were painting? Like, that must be intimidating if they were.
Luckily,
as in they're like people checking in.
Yeah, they dispersed quite quickly. I am not I'm not very good at drawing in front of people.
Yeah.
I'm better at it, especially with the online lessons that we do with M.Y.O. And I kind of draw along with all the people on there. But yeah, I'm very private, because like many creatives, I find I have the perfectionist kind of gene. And not that I'm saying my work is perfect by any means, but like, I just, until it looks how I want it to look, I don't want anyone to see it. And actually, when I let go of that, I actually produce more interesting stuff. But back then, right at the beginning, so I hadn't learned that yet. And I was really glad that everyone was busy with pet food selling.
Yeah. Also, it's a massive wall. And I can imagine you're tackling something that just big in size. You just feel that kind of, conscious about.
I went through like 10 pens. It was incredibly like, it was hard work. I was still drawing when the party to unveil it happened.
No.
Yeah.
They're like, we have a live artist in the room for the lunch.
It was like, you can stop now. I was like, no.
Oh, that's amazing.
It
does look very cool. We'll put a picture up, everyone, of what that of what it looks like.
Yeah, and I think that's just a great idea in general for offices. I've worked in accounting firms, and they're just very uninspiring spaces. And just having a few interesting quotes or images can, I don't know, it just, and it sparks conversations and just puts you in a more positive mindset.
And it's literally a win-win situation. You've got something that's boring turning into something interesting. You're supporting illustrators and creatives whilst you're doing it, who will probably do it for not enough money. Yeah. Like, I'm a big advocate of trying to get as much money as you should deserve. But sometimes like that was one where I think I definitely worked harder than I was reimbursed for. And no drama to them. It was all me being like, yes, I'll do everything. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
But it looked incredible on my LinkedIn, on my social medias, and started getting other companies coming to me for stuff when I could finally feel a bit confident that I hadn't run away with a croissant. I knew I could stay this time and get more work from it. So it was like a stepping stone for me that was probably pittance for them and made their employees a bit more happy. So it's a
win-win-win.
Nice.
Yeah, definitely. I think no matter what you do when you first start, it's always a bit of, you probably do end up underselling yourself just because you don't even understand what the full work is, the full process is, and then also, and you feel everyone feels a little bit lower in confidence, and then once you do it, as you said, you're like, okay, now I've got this, now I've got something to show that I'm proud of.
And you can be like, look what I've delivered before.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. So back to the book.
Yes.
So it's called The Big Hair Parade. And before we go into the ins and outs about how it kind of got made, Diana, if you could tell the listeners about the various characters, and feel free to jump in as well, Abby. So to go through the characters in the book, to kind of help people visualize them, what they look like, and a little bit of the story behind each one.
Yeah, absolutely. So the characters in the book, whoever's watching this video, I can show you. They look like these girls. Look at them. And I
should say, sorry, we will put a link in the podcast description to the website so you can check the characters out.
Yeah, so the characters are Aisha, who is kind of the center character. She's a little black girl with kind of puffy afro coils, curly hair. She is quite kind of boisterous and extroverted. It was kind of her incentive, her impetus to go to the parade and bring everyone to go with her. And that's when she kind of experiences, oh, okay, I want to go to this parade, but my hair, what do I do with it? Because I think anyone who knows Afro hair just needs a lot more work and it is much less straightforward than a lot of other hair types. And
I have to say on that, I totally didn't realize I knew nothing about Afro hair and kind of how long it takes to work with it. And every time I see
the process.
Afro hair now, I'm like, good on you.
Yeah.
It looks great. Because it just takes a lot of work to make it look nice, I guess, or to kind of lots of different styles, and it's an art form in its own right.
Absolutely, it's a different hair type to manage and manipulate. I just wanted to show a little bit. She's the character that just kind of reflects that journey a little bit that I really wanted to share, because I don't think a lot of people, at least that I've come across, know about that. So that's Aisha. There's and Aisha's a little bit, you take influence from real life, so it's a little bit from my own story, my own experience, Aisha. Lulu's a bit of a cool kid with her skates. And they're quite relaxed, quite creative. Lulu's inspiration's drawn from Abby.
Because I'm really cool.
Yeah, I look cool. Yeah. Roller skating. Can you roller skate?
I mean, I went to the roller disco every Saturday when I was younger.
There we go. So that's Lulu. Yeah, Lulu's quite relaxed dancer. One just as a kind of different energy to Aisha. They're all friends. Carla, curly hair. So I should say Lulu's blonde. Carla, curly hair. Framed as a bit of a kind of the bossy one, quote unquote. She knows what she wants. She's, quite direct, quite straightforward. That's her character.
The drama plays at school.
Yeah, exactly. It would be the drama plays in school. Would be, that's Carla. And then we have lastly Priya. And Priya, I put her as a little bit more experimental. She kind of wants to try new things, is interested in different things. It's just that age, because they're all 8, 7, 8 years old. They're in that stage where they're becoming teenagers, still kids. So they're very much still discovering themselves and trying out different things.
They've got their personalities and they're working out where they fit in life, which is, you know, you don't actually have to fit anywhere in life, but they're just trying out all the different types.
Yeah, exactly. And Priya's kind of that kind of extreme of that, wanting to try different things. You know, she's there in her Superman outfit, trying to see what that feels like. And so those are the characters in a very brief form. It's also worth saying that they're from different backgrounds, very different backgrounds. So Aisha, as I said, is a little black girl. Lulu's blonde, Caucasian, and Carla is Spanish, Hispanic kind of background, and Priya is Indian. And I really wanted to show this mixed race friendship group just because it kind of is a reflection from my own life as well. A lot of my friends, a lot of times I find myself actually in very mixed race groups, and I just felt that wasn't really represented enough. So as well as telling the black story or the black girl hair story, which is its own thing, and revealing a little bit of that, I really wanted to show that these stories don't happen in silo. They just don't happen. And, it's not like people just living on their own in a corner.
Open for all of the little children. You kind of learn about different cultures and different hairs from having friends. And then if you happen to be in a predominantly white area, like if you're out in the countryside, like I grew up, then you're going to have those friends in books that teach you about Afro hair and teach you about bindis and
exactly.
Like
And just open up your mind a little bit to the different experiences. I really wanted to show the different experiences all together in one book with the main character being black. So that's
sounds great.
A bit about the characters.
And it is great.
It was fun. It was really fun to come up with them.
I guess on that, this was back in, I guess you kind of came up with the idea around Christmas time, and then you guys chatted first in February. At what stage was it at when you kind of first spoke, and how do you bring those characters to life, Abby, I guess from an illustration perspective? Like because I don't actually know, at the time, did Diana have very specific characters and names, or was it, I have this rough idea, have some text? How did that happen? How did you bring it to life and kind of work on the characters?
So I think, Diana, you came to me with the stories. It was when COVID lockdown was in session, and we kind of Zoom called each other and started to be like, well, let's develop this. Let's get this going. And you knew it was the hair types you knew. And then through talking, we were both so passionate about not having these kind of whitewashed children's books that are so prevalent in children's publishing in the UK. That we were just like, well, let's see, like, we want this multicultural gang of girls just having a good time and being normal and being like little kids together. And I think that's when they started coming together and they started being more bossy. Like, I actually think, I don't know, you let me know if you think different, Diana. I reckon Carla started being bossy when we found out what outfit she was wearing for the play.
Absolutely. A million times. Absolutely. I knew the hair types, then I knew that obviously Priya and Aisha were going to be different races. And then as we developed Carla, we just I don't know, it's almost kind of natural. We put her in this queen outfit, not a princess. We were very clear. We wanted her to be a queen. She knows what she wants.
There's a bit more authority,
I guess. A little bit more authority, actually a little bit like almost in a weird way, the Red Queen in Alice in Wonderland.
Definitely.
Without the meanness, but just to show, it's great for little girls to have that level of confidence and what's always called bossiness in a negative way, but actually in a positive way. And then I don't know at what point we're like, she should be Spanish or Hispanic. And it just kind of came up. It just kind of happened. I think sometimes the characters start almost having a life of their own without you consciously thinking about it. So,
Do you think that happens when you decide on the name? As in, do you like use the name as the anchor and you kind of frame the whole thing around it to make it feel more real? Or did you have lots of words to do with each particular character and it kind of the name stemmed from that, and that's how what they're wearing and their characteristics
came from?
That was a rambling question.
No,
Apologies.
that's a good question. I think I knew I wanted it to be kind of copperish hair, copperish curly hair.
Yeah.
And then Carla, just, I guess, curly hair, Carla, quite straightforward. And then I think from that, maybe the red queen dress, copper hair, red dress. And then from that, maybe... Actually,
I think it's about spending time with the characters and talking about them, and you draw them, and they honestly like come up with their own stuff. It's really creepy. Yeah. Like Diana and I would be looking at the pictures and be like, oh no, she wouldn't look meek like that. Like she would look more strong and powerful, and and edit little bits, and then you're like, okay, she's quite strong and powerful. Like she's probably quite regal. I think, let's do that. And it just kind of comes out at you. It's really strange.
Do you find, Abby, that did you start sketching the characters very quickly, or do you need to kind of go and get lots of inspiration on Google and see kind of characters that you think might fit with similarly to that character? How does that work?
As soon as I read what Diana had written for the story, because the story was pretty much 99% there, like I started having little drawings of them pop into my head. Like it was just the descriptive curly copper hair and things like that. Yeah. And like all the long flowing plaits of Priya. You could like see them, and then you start attaching them to people you know in your life. Yes. And immediately attached Aisha to Diana and Lulu to myself, because, you know, I grew up being like, oh, my hair is so boring. And it's straight. Like it normally just hangs straight. And then it would fascinate me when my friends had hair straighteners to try and have straight hair. And I'd be like, don't do that. Yeah. Oh, man, it's so flat. You can see the whole shape of my head. Like, oh. And my mum would always be like, everyone wants different from what they have. And that is, as soon as Diana read me the story as well, like it just resonated. That's
amazing. There's such a good fit between you both of the story and kind of that has been in your lives, that kind of the issue that it helps to raise.
Yeah, and that's exact, again, that like, it's great to hear this said, because sometimes it's hard to articulate when it sits in my own head, but that's exactly why I wanted to write it. It's like I had this struggle with my afro hair, pulling, painful, wishing I had different hair. But then actually, this doesn't happen in silo. Every little girl, you know, wants to have different hair. And then it's actually a shared experience come at from different perspectives, but also showing that despite everybody wanting different hair, somebody else will want your hair, and actually then totally appreciate and embrace and, you know, completely love the superpower that your own hair has. And that's where it goes. And I was just really excited to share that. And I think I got so much energy that Abby resonated with the story as I did, but coming at it from very different places.
I can just picture that call you guys having, and Diana sharing the story, and Abby was like, I totally resonate with this.
Anyway. Honestly, like I had curling tongs, like I am Lulu on that page where she has a really sad curl that's just not sticking and being like, and I remember I went to uni and I started trying to back comb my hair, which is one of the like hideous things you can do. Like, and just getting this kind of like beehive to try and get it to raise from my head and then you kind of grow up, and like Diana and I are in our 30s now. Yeah, just about. And you start to like love the skin you're in. And I think kids especially are bombarded with all these different images. Everyone's bombarded with all these images of like how you're supposed to look, and how, you know, you have all these celebrities who have hairstylists every single day they go out. You know, and you don't even think about that, and you just think that your hair's supposed to look like that the whole time.
Or they wear wigs.
Or they wear wigs, exactly.
You know, and you just you don't take time to process that and go, oh, and I want her hair. It's actually maybe her hair isn't that either.
And then you kind of like grow up and you're like, okay, this is kind of what I've been handed by whoever, you know, no, I went far too religious there. But and then you start to actually appreciate, okay, well, I can do my hair in some plaits and it stays out of my face, and
absolutely.
And Diana, I'm sure you have the same.
Oh my gosh, for me it was, I wanted straight, I wanted that kind of wavy, silky hair that just didn't hurt at all. Hence what Aisha says, I really, you go through phases of relaxing Afro hair, which is putting chemical straightener in it.
Really bad for your hair.
Exactly. It makes it manageable for a small length of time, but completely breaks your hair. Completely breaks your hair, burns your scalp. And you think, if it can burn through my scalp, whatever's seeping into my brain is probably not a good thing. So, then you go, actually embrace Afro hair for what it is. It can be shaped into loads of things. You can braid it. You can add extensions. You can cut it short. You can leave it as an Afro. There's, embrace that and stop trying to make it into, as Abby said, something I really learned much later on. Embrace it for what it is, because it is special and unique in its own way. And everyone realizes that later. And I just wish, and the hope with this book is that they can realize it earlier. Save a lot of heartache.
It's so true. That went so far away from the question you asked, Sam.
Yeah, sorry.
I have no idea what the question was. The next question was, how did you manage the process between you guys? Like, what did that look like on a weekly basis, I guess, from...
So I definitely... I'm always very honest about me, and why not share it with everyone listening to this podcast too? I am a bad deadliner. I only work if there is a deadline. If you tell me it's really nice, this thing, but don't worry about it, I won't do it. It won't happen. It's so annoying. And from spending a lot of lockdown, I'm at my parents' at the moment. This is my childhood bedroom. I've found out that my dad is exactly the same. And
really?
Has been on the phone to the self-taxing people at midnight on the deadline night, kind of bad. So I said to Diana straight up, you're going to have to keep an eye on me. Let's set up something regular. Let's keep checking in, and we'll have goals, and we'll set the goals. And at the same time, I can get very stressed about deadlines. So I was like, let's reach for the stars and fall, or reach for the moon, fall in the stars, have a nice time in the universe. No.
Perfect.
I mean, set deadlines. If we don't meet them, fine, but at least we've worked towards them and some work has happened.
Yeah, absolutely.
Illustrating a children's book is a long process.
Yeah.
There are backgrounds, there are foregrounds, there are different characters. There's getting how realistic, how cartoony, and then making them consistent across pages, making them look like their own person.
Yeah.
I'm still learning, but I really enjoyed the process that Diana and I had, which was we would chat every Friday at 3.
Yeah.
And just kind of go through what I'd done that week and what Diana had thought about it, which is really, really invaluable for me as an illustrator, because you spend this time head in what you're doing, and then you take a step back and you just want to break. And Diana had these fresh eyes that could look at it and be like, I think Aisha's nose is on her forehead. Which did happen.
Which definitely did happen, yeah. There was some, it was
noses.
I think it was I think it was Priya's nose was a bit too high up at one point. But it happens, whatever you do, if you're the only one working on it for long hours at one point, you just get so lost in what's going on. It just needed, I think we had a really good balance of the fresh eye. So I wrote it first, just blank story on a Word document, read it to Abby. She gave me some feedback, gave a couple of editors as well to read the story. Once it was almost done, Abby started working on it, and then I kind of very early on tweaked it to the very, very last kind of edits on the text.
Yeah.
Then we used that to break it up into into pages. And then on the pages, we started off with a sketch. I drew out what I envisioned each page to look like. And Abby did the same, just to get 2 different sets of ideas.
It's a really good idea.
Yeah. And then kind of, in a way, at the very beginning, Abby let me kind of lead, because it was a vision for my book, but actually it's so good seeing how somebody's interpreting your text. And Abby has worked on children's books before, and on some pages, actually I would take the drawing very literally, and Abby would go, actually, why doesn't this drawing add to the text rather than exactly reflect what the text is saying, which is something I learned in this process. And then after the drawing stage, Abby then kind of found inspiration for all the characters, because you kind of do want to pin them to something or someone who looks like what you're imagining. So, getting inspiration for the characters, getting inspiration for the big parade as well. There's an amazing collage Abby's done, which I think is a piece of art in its own, digital art in its own right. A big kind of collage of what the parade should look like. I mean, for anyone listening to this, you can literally cut out magazine pictures and stick them on as a first point of call. And then after that, Abby then drew page by page. And that's when we had our Friday catch-ups, kind of reviewing double spreads, half of the book. And then to finish off, something that you just don't even think about because you're so focused on the characters and what's going on, the backgrounds. And again, when you're doing this process, that's when the characters start becoming their own, because you're drawing them, you're drawing their dress, you're drawing their background. You start
bedrooms, their things they have, what their family life is like.
Exactly.
And these glimpses into their lives of these characters that you've made up, and it's kind of made up from our experiences and from research online, because I know a lot of illustrators, professional ones like Chris Riddell, they've drawn people so much that they can just draw out a character. But before you get to that level of expertise, it's good to draw from references. And so you don't end up with a nose halfway up a forehead.
Yeah, definitely. I spend a lot of time on Pinterest. I spend a lot of time on Pinterest finding the references. So if anyone is doing this or wants to do something similar, I don't think, you have to come up from scratch. Spend time on Pinterest, look at other children's book characters, look at other cartoon characters that you like, and then you can just start piecing that together, and actually it will form into its own character as you go through the process.
Just a note on our sponsors who brought you this podcast. M.Y.O, Make Your Own, runs over 14 different arts and crafts workshops, both online and offline. We also make creative how-to content for brands.
Check out @M.Y.O London for more details. Creative Jungle Company produces lots of creative kits for friends, families, companies and events. This podcast and also shares lots of learnings on creativity and creative thinking and how they could be helpful for you. Check out creativejunglecompany.com for more details on that.
Back to the podcast.
What was your process like, deadlines aside and kind of needing that focal point? Like how do you develop Carla? Like what's a bit of a walkthrough from that, from looking at inspiration to sketching to getting feedback?
So I would take Diana's text and I would take every adjective about Carla and have it in front of me, and then go through the internet and I'd kind of search for those adjectives, and then you'd start getting bits in Google Images that would take you off on little rabbit holes. And then every time I saw an image that I was like, that's a Carla, I would save that. And Diana and I would Pinterest each other them and and then be like, oh no, actually I saw it like this. And then you kind of dive deeper, and you can go on a really weird internet hole for images. Really sometimes I get a bit scared because obviously I'm looking up images of children on the internet and, I don't want the police knocking on my door. I'm just trying to find a lovely little curly haired girl to draw for this thing. And
it is a weird hole, definitely. You can go through, then weird specifics that you're looking for as well. And especially because we're doing this in the context of lockdown. So you're very reliant on the internet versus just looking around for people
that's a good point.
around you. I think that's one thing I found, because I think in day-to-day life, if I was doing this, now running in the park, I'd be able to start finding those characters. But before it was very much just, internet holes.
And what do you use to draw? Is there a particular software, Abby, that you use?
Yes, so I use Procreate on my iPad Pro, and
Yes.
I find it really helpful because you can draw in layers, and much like Photoshop, but it's also, so I ended up with an iPad because I was looking into getting a Wacom tablet for my computer where you kind of draw on a pad and it appears on your computer. And then they brought out this one where the screen was on the pad, so you draw on the pad and it would draw onto the screen. And then people were like, why don't you just get an iPad Pro? And I read loads of reviews and I was like, okay, fine. It's been the best decision because I'm quite a slow, methodical worker, and something that really speeds up any mistakes you make if you have to go back and redo something is having everything in layers and being able to undo parts of a drawing without undoing other parts. And Procreate, like pens and pencils and different brushes they have, even like I haven't got any of the bought packages, and that they're all brilliant. You can like customize them and make them look more like pencils and chalk and recolor them at any stage. I think when you're working on something collaborative as well, especially when you're going to kind of like present it, like every Friday I talk to Diana about it and we'd be like, oh, let's make the pupils a bit bigger or a bit smaller. And then like that would be really hard if I'd have drawn it. I'd have to take it into Photoshop and then undo that bit. And then if I wanted it back, whereas with this, I could just take the pupil layer, turn it off, put on a new one, draw a new pupil, be like, how about this? And Diana could be like, they now look crazy. And I'd be like, okay, let me add this bit. And then it just makes the whole process so much quicker.
Yeah.
I think there is a beauty, like there is a slightly, like hand drawn is always going to look beautiful. And that is why art sells. And that's why things are in the Tate and etc. But when you are working on like a huge project, it is invaluable to have it digital.
Yes, definitely.
And this was a question that Agathe asked also, is how do you know when it's done? Like, how do you go, just move on to the next page? Or even with the book itself, which is finished now, how did you know it's done?
That's such a good question, because I think Diana and I could keep working on this for like years.
Yeah. Definitely.
So is it party, look, we've spent a few months on it now, we just need to get it out? Or
no, we did have a system in the end. It was when we both were like, yeah, that's it. Yeah. And both of us had to be like, that's it. And quite often, like one of us would be like, okay, that's it. And then the other one would be like, her eyebrows weird. And it would just, when we both had two yeses, like the X Factor.
Yeah, it was very immediate yeses. Yeah.
Is that, it's like obviously you guys knew each other before this, and I think for people listening, finding somebody that you know or that has a similar style or sense of what you're about as well, I think has a big impact, because if you guys didn't know each other and trust each other so much, that can be hard. Where you're like, I don't like that eyebrow, and the other person's like, well, I like it.
Yeah,
like it can lead to a lot less progress. I guess.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Picking your collaborator is very important.
Yeah, I think so. And I don't know, I think one thing that worked well is aligning our vision quite early on. I think if you can align on a lot of it, that makes it so much easier, because you just kind of know when that page is done, because you kind of agreed on what that page should look like.
Yeah.
And also the review process. By the time we finish, you've seen some pages like 20 times, at least. And then you see all the characters together and you see how they progress through the page. And so you get a good sense for actually that page is really done. And I think what was interesting, what happened is as we went through the process, the later pages were being finalized much faster. Yeah. So actually the pages that needed the most edits were right at the beginning.
Isn't
it?
Less of the journey to get to it. And we'd like obviously like got the vision more in our heads and had done these last pages and they looked right. And then we'd go back to the first pages and be like, they now look wrong.
Yeah. They now look wrong, because it's kind of like with that was when we were still fresh. Yeah. We evolved and kind of cemented and I guess even Abby, from a drawing perspective, if you agree with this, like your eye and your kind of drawing was flowing much more. It kind of flows more the more you do it, right? So towards the end, you were flowing much faster.
Definitely. It's so like it's an actual journey that you're going on to get to know the book at the same time as doing the book. So it just becomes like a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy where it just starts coming out quicker and better. Yeah. But I think the best thing about Diana and I's partnership is the level of respect we have for each other. Yeah. Like, I totally know that this is Diana's vision. Like, she wrote this story as like a story that she wished she had when she was a little girl, and when she was feeling down about having this unmanageable afro. And like, I am grateful to be brought on board. So like, you know, if the vision isn't working, like, I can't be like, oh, well, I would like it this way, because this is Diana's like book that she's written from her soul. Like,
Abby.
I would be like, okay, I want it to be something Diana is really proud of, and like, this is a collaborative thing. And then equally, Diana would be like, you're the illustrator. Like, I want you to say if you think something is not working, or like if you really think it should be one way, even if I'm not agreeing. And then just having that level meant that we would just, what's the word? Compromise. We'd compromise on different bits. And it wasn't even a thing that, I don't feel like either of us have anything that we regret about the book.
No, not at all.
That's special. Like, that's a sign of a really good partnership and collaboration.
Yeah, I think Abby, I mean, to fangirl Abby back, I think it was just amazing working with you, because you are so open to suggestions and ideas. And, you know, it's amazing working with an illustrator who's happy to do 3 different versions of something just to show you what they look like, because sometimes, you know, what you imagine on paper actually might not translate. And I just thought that was so amazingly collaborative of you to go, you know, let's do this. Or equally, sometimes you go, you know what, let's just leave it for now and revisit it later, because sometimes you feel like, oh, something isn't quite right, but you're not quite sure. And you'd go, you know what, we've spent enough time. Let's park it for now. Let's move on. Yeah. And then we can revisit it when we're both fresher, with fresher eyes. So it's, you know, and I would really respect that, because again, it's like, you know, you're the illustrator. You have that eye. If you're saying, let's move on, we'll revisit it, I trust that. So again, I think respect and just trusting each other in that process has been.
So I imagine if someone was looking for an illustrator, that it would be good to like get on the phone, have a chat with them, and see if it's someone that you feel like you could respect and get on well with, and they will get that feel too, because like, we're lucky that we were already friends.
Working together, and friends.
But I think, it's like finding people that are on the same wavelength. Or not even the same wavelength, but are on the same work wavelength.
Yeah, definitely.
I can see that. Like, it's really important when you're building a company to have a very robust kind of onboarding process and interview process. And I often hear that with films and directors and actors. They meet 50 times sometimes before a film even starts, because they're just trying to build that relationship and get the vision across and bounce back on ideas and see how they work on ideas. So.
Yeah, you have to trust
that work. Then you're going to get the best out of each other.
Yeah.
You don't even know what you could create, but you have to do the foundations, lay the foundations to be able to create on top of that.
Yeah. I think being able to trust each other, respect each other, and I think challenge each other as well without taking it like to heart, I think is really, really good, because, you know, even now, for example, like towards finishing the book, there's still some tweaks that I was thinking, oh, are they important? Should I let them go? And then, you know, I show them Abby and she goes, no, you know, I think we should still change that. We should still change that. Definitely. And that helps, because you go, yeah, actually, you're right. And it helps it makes the end piece better if you can do that. So that's what I'd say.
Nice. So we're kind of moving on a little bit, and we get back to the book a bit more, but just generally, and this is a very open question, so if you don't have answers, that's fine. But just, I'm interested to hear how immersing yourselves in creativity, like how that has changed things in your lives. And the reason I ask this is, like, Dana, you've come from a more corporate background and hadn't done lots of creative things. Abby went down the road of studying chemistry and psychology before coming back to creativity. Like, how has it positively or negatively, I guess, impacted your lives generally?
Like, okay, I'll go from my corporate background, as many of you know, from my corporate background to then working in M.Y.O, where I met Abby wonderfully over a year ago now.
Through the Songbirds.
Through the Songbirds. And then now doing Creative Jungle, which is this podcast and the creative kits that we do for companies. I think in general, like being creative and following that inspiration, that creative instinct has just opened up a whole world of opportunities for me, as we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
It really, really has, because once you realize that, I have this spark of an idea, okay, I can follow it through and create a business, a product. And of course, I'm not saying it goes smoothly the first time. By no means did, starting M.Y.O go through smoothly, as we talked about in the first podcast. But, once you do something like that, you realize, actually, it is like I am capable of whatever I tell myself I'm capable of.
Yeah.
So, okay, I'm capable of having this idea, or I've been blessed with an idea from the ether. Okay, I'm capable of manifesting it into something and executing it and bringing it to life and sharing it with people. And the more you do that, the more that muscle just becomes faster and, stronger. And anyway, that's really been the main learning. So exactly with this book, I felt that inspiration, and I was like, yeah, in 2020, I can write a children's book. I've never done it. But I can.
5 years ago, before you went on this M.Y.O journey, I just couldn't have seen that happening, because you ask so many questions about not to do stuff, kind of like, children's book, no, I couldn't do that, couldn't draw that, I've never written one before, so I'm not going to write one, or whatever, how will I sell it, I don't know how to sell things. So it's amazing to see the confidence that's been built.
Absolutely, it's the confidence, and also I think you trust that you can figure it out, and you don't need to figure it out alone. As is evident with this. I was blessed to have met Abby, and having this idea, you immediately think, I know who I can ask to. I can't draw, but I know who can. And you immediately feel like actually you have a lovely network of people you can ask to help you execute your idea, and they'll be happy to help you as well.
Nice.
I think creativity is a bit like improv. And I know nothing about improv, but I listen to a few podcasts where people do improv for like confidence reasons. And I think creativity is the same thing, like what you guys were saying. It teaches you to go for an idea and like jump out into the mist and then catch yourself and be like, I could do that. You just like have that trust to be able to try something new, to try something different. And like sometimes it will go badly. And then that's a good lesson in telling yourself that it doesn't always have to be perfect. And then sometimes it will go well. And then you look back at your year and you're like, wow, I've outputted like a children's book, a podcast, online lessons for the first time, and we're only in August.
On the BBC, which you'll get to shortly.
Exactly.
Who knew? But creativity for me was something that I just love doing. And I always kept kind of thinking about what I wanted to do when I was older. I've always heard that phrase, if you do something you love, you're never going to work a day in your life. And that's a bit of a rose-tinted view, because it doesn't matter what work you do, even if you love it, like sometimes it's going to be hard graft. Sometimes you're going to be working late and you're going to wish that you could just watch another episode of RuPaul's Drag Race and not be doing this right now. But it is like when you look at kind of what you've outputted, instead of like when I was a data analyst, it would be kind of reconnaissance for finding funds that people hadn't paid us. It instead would be a children's book. And like that kind of sat well with like I know that I quite want to make the world a better place, as I feel like most people do. And it's quite hard to just, you're not going to cure the world of everything. But like with children's books, you're literally teaching kids like their first experiences of different people sometimes. And like it just seems such a noble place to start when kids are so like unsullied by prejudice and things, that you can just get in there and be like, look at all these different people that exist in this world. Let's teach kindness. Let's teach like love and things like that. And like think how different our generation is to the generation that was before us, like thinking about in terms of climate change or alcohol consumption. Like, it's obvious that starting with kids and starting with education is the way that you change the world. And it's a slow way, and it can be frustrating being in the world while it changes incredibly slowly. But I do think that you've got to, do what you can to do the good thing. And for me, that's drawing. And so it's got to be drawing for kids.
Yeah. Perfect.
Nice.
Absolutely. I love that. And I really love that kind of higher purpose of you want to change the world and leave it in a better way
than you found
than you came. Yeah.
And this brings us beautifully onto Black Lives Matter, which obviously has got lots of great momentum, and I think it will last to lots of kind of long-term change and improvements for people of colour. And the book is very apt for this time. We kind of touched on that earlier in the podcast. You've both been very proactive in supporting the Black Lives Matter movement and using the platforms that you have, which I think is really important. Just generally, what are your thoughts on it? Again, another quite open question, but what's your current thinking on the Black Lives Matter movement?
I mean, it is a big question. What's my thinking on Black Lives Matter? Well, Black Lives Matter is the first, but like strong.
Headline.
I say it in a kind of a strong statement. And for me personally, being Black, my experience of the whole thing was, it's raw, it's shocking, it lifts up all these things that you've experienced. And it's been amazing to see that things that you think dismiss as small things, have a name now, it's microaggressions, because it does make you feel like you're being, attacked or, whether it's meant to or not. But it was overwhelming, but it really kind of validated a lot of feelings that I've had and experienced. So that's the first step. And I think the second step for me is made me feel even more kind of fire to change the world in that, to become a better place. It gave me more fire to think, actually, let me show people what I can do as a Black woman. Lead by example. Yeah, lead by example.
Having your own business.
Have my own, my own business, but also with the book, it's like, let me share a Black story. And again, not in silo, because these things don't happen in silo. They happen with everyone around. Nobody lives on their own. No race lives on their own in this silo. So again, the book was like, okay, this is another way of showing a Black experience in a positive way, in a way that involves everyone else, showing that actually this story is universal. And that's really been my feeling of BLM. It's making me feel empowered to keep making those changes and keep sharing the stories in different ways and just kind of creating a positive impact as much as I can.
That's amazing. Yeah. Very inspiring.
Yeah.
Because when it became a lot more prominent, I guess like 5 or probably 2 months ago now, like I've never seen Diana low energy. Diana's always full of energy and vibrant, and there's literally like 3 or 4 days where Diana was like at zero, and just because I think it was just a well of everything over the course of her life. That you seem to feel exhausted and had no energy. So it's great to see the energy is back and was pumped into the book. And we do lots of stuff with M.Y.O to kind of feature Black artists, and we'll be collaborating with a bunch as well to kind of just be the change that you want to see.
Absolutely. You can't go through something like that and just think, okay, I'll just sit there and go back to life as normal. For me, it felt like, okay, life can't be normal. I'm not saying that I'm changing the world and a million people, but everyone has the ability to create positive change. So it's just taking that fire with me. Yeah. In
your little world that you inhabit. It's not as big as the whole world, but you can change the people in your world, and you can do the learning. And that's what, like, obviously the whole Black Lives Matter movement is incredibly uncomfortable as a white person, as it should be, because it is like a period of time where, like, I feel like I've been learning a lot, and I've been learning about different biases. And there's things like, I don't consider myself a racist in any way, but I have to accept that there are biases from being brought up in a predominantly white kind of childhood and schooling system, and from especially being out in the country and not being in London until later in my life. And that's a really horrible thing to think as a person who cares like that everyone is treated right. Everyone should be treated equally, and that is just not happening, and you have to accept that it's not happening to change it. And that's a horrible thing to think that you're unconsciously a part of. And all you can do to combat that is to learn, and is to show your support and get things wrong sometimes. And I know the internet can go a bit crazy on what is right and wrong and stuff, but you just have to know that your world, your little bubble, is what you can change, and you can have those conversations around the fireside. I don't know why the fire's on, but I've been home with my parents, who are wonderful and loving people, and they love anyone who comes into their house, but they are of an older generation, and it's just like educating them and having these difficult conversations that sometimes end in arguments that you could just avoid, but it's our duty not to. It's our duty to talk and learn and listen, and that's just the most important thing, like, that you can
do. The only point I'd add on that is to be proactive, because I guess there's a difference obviously between not being a racist and being anti-racist, and proactively kind of doing things, because it is easy to just go, I'm not racist, I haven't done anything, I haven't impacted anybody, but like, from the little bubble that you're in, or the platform that you have, it does make a big difference if everybody does that, to kind of make Black characters more prominent on their feeds, especially for brands, because there's lots of brands who seem to be embracing it now, but
weren't necessarily before
in the past. So it's kind of interesting to see how people react or don't react, and kind of don't do anything, where I think it's it's becoming kind of inexcusable now to not make people of color more prominent in anything that you're doing.
Absolutely.
To lift them as best you can with what you can do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And to like expand so I made a point of going through my Instagram, and I was looking at who I was following, and I have a few Instagrams. I have the Van Instagram, my personal Instagram, and my illustration Instagram. And like, the algorithms serve you people with similar ideas, similar things, and they were predominantly white, and I was shocked. I was really shocked going through who I was following. So I like made a point of like going through Black illustrators, people of color, and just like following them, and having my feed be something other than just this homogeneous like place where I can just be comfortable.
Yeah.
And actually like making sure that you do like find out about other people and other people's cultures, backgrounds and histories, and what's important to them.
Yeah.
Like, you're a sponge. Like, there's no limit to what you can't soak up, but you have to put yourself in those spaces that aren't just
exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even from a purely selfish level, as an individual, the more you open yourself up to new people, or at least understanding new ideas and new cultures, not only the more informed you are, the more inspiration you'll probably get, the more ideas you'll have.
Yeah.
And in your life will just be richer. So there's kind of no reason not to do that.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's a side point, but I think it's just important from a selfish perspective. Diversity and embracing it and understanding other people is just powerful.
And that's why I absolutely loved working on the book, because I could have these chats with Diana and be like, I want to know more about Afro maintenance. Like, tell me, I know that coconut oil is involved. Where does it go? Is it going on the hair? And Diana's like, no, it's for the scalp, because you're pulling quite tight when you're doing braids. And it is like, so you just kind of like calm the scalp down. You like, let it have some moisture because it's being like pulled. And, these are things that you would not know if you didn't have a friend or a family member or people in your life that can tell you these things and can ask the questions. And it is not up to Diana to have to answer them. It's just we happen to be working on the book together.
Yeah, I mean, it was... And that was literally the exact conversation.
Yeah.
No, it was really good to do.
Okay, so we might quickly go through the BBC.
Yes.
And what happened there, and then we'll get back to the book. But yeah, how Tell us.
That was a weird one. So when lockdown all started, I live in the same village as Carter's Steam Fair that travels around the UK and comes to Peckham where I park quite a lot.
Ah, nice.
We all were Peckhamers up until last week when I moved out.
Oh.
Boo.
But yeah, they live in the village, and obviously their whole fairground shut down because of COVID. And Joby is a sign writer there, and he started offering sign writing courses online. And I've always wanted to do his in-person ones, and I've always been in Peckham, but like then this was online and it was much cheaper and I could learn all the stuff. And so I did a few of them, and yeah, then he put out a press release talking about his stuff, and it was a really cool, like, it's a really good lesson in diversifying your business. Like his business involved people being in close contact, swapping over, and now he's on the internet teaching people, selling like sign writing supplies. He's like, you know, doing signs. Him and his mum both paint. Anna Carter paints like these beautiful chicken things, and they sell them online.
Nice.
And so, yeah, the BBC came to interview him, and they were like, oh, it'd be great to interview someone who's done one of your courses. And he was like, well, I know Abby in the village round the corner has. And so it was literally because I was the closest person. And my mum and his mum are quite good friends. So he obviously remembered that I'd been on a course and that I lived here too. So it was early April, and the lovely Matt Tracy came round, and it was all kind of like, hello, very socially distanced. Like I locked my parents inside the house because they were shielding, and I was like, okay, you know, this has to be really. And he had his boom with the long microphone on.
Did he?
Oh my goodness. And we sat down and did the interview, and I was so nervous, but obviously I made a good impression. No, I'm joking. He has to for the news. He edited it so well that I look quite like, I look like
it was really good. It was really
so
good.
chilled.
Yeah.
And I know that you absolutely loved the course. So when I saw that, I was like, oh my God, Abby being interviewed. Yeah.
It was absolutely bonkers. But yeah, that was another thing. Like all of me was screaming, no, I don't want to do this. This is really awkward. And I was just like, don't be an idiot. Just do it. Who cares?
Yes.
Come on.
And then next time, when you're on the BBC for the book.
A hilarious anecdote. Like, and my parents' bin was featured. So that's absolutely
perfect. Yeah, that's good practice for our next interview on the BBC on the book.
Yeah. Very
cross BBC if you can hear this.
Yeah, we'll see you soon, BBC.
Yeah.
So back to the book, and that was great, Abby. Well done. When is the book launching, and what is the plan to launch it?
Yeah, so the book is going to launch on the 30th of August at the end of this month. So really soon, guys.
Children's Carnival Day.
Yeah, on Children's Carnival Day, we just thought it'd be perfect celebrate or kind of a little homage to Carnival and the parade. Perfect for a big hair parade to launch. And on that day, we're also going to do a Carnival costume drawing class over Zoom with Abby and I for everyone and their kids to come in, enjoy. And it'll be available on Amazon to purchase on paperback and on an ebook version. We're also going to do a pre-order for those who want to pre-order. It's available now on pre-order, but the launch is on the 30th of August.
Nice.
But if you're our friends and you're listening to this, or you just really like the sound of us, then do pre-order it, because apparently that's really good.
Yeah. Do pre-order it.
And we'll get into the website and stuff in a minute. Reflecting a little bit on the process, what has been your biggest learnings? Like, I think you've gone through lots of detail, and it should be quite clear for people about how you've gone about making the book, which I think is really helpful. So thanks for being so open and honest and helpful on that front. But kind of on reflecting, what are the biggest learnings you have that might be useful for people who'd like to illustrate their own book or get into creative things?
I think that it takes a long time. Diana and I have been working on this since kind of April. Yeah. And we are just getting to the point where we can start talking about launching it. And I think it can be hard. Like, illustrators have an idea of how long illustrations take because they do them. But like it feels like they're effortless, because that's part of the job of illustrating them, is to make them look enjoyable and not make you think about how much work went into them. But yeah, I think if you've got a book in mind that you want to get illustrated, then contact illustrators early, and have regular check-ins for sure. Keep the progress going, but appreciate it's going to take, like, we bashed this out pretty quickly because of lockdown, I think.
Yes.
If it had been normal times, it probably would have taken twice as long, 6 months, even a year.
Yeah.
So kind of keep that in your mind, and probably coincide it so you're before Christmas.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. I think that's a really good point. I definitely realized that it's taken a long time. I wrote this first draft in January, kind of left it February, spoke to Abby, and then we've been working on it since lockdown of April, when I could give it more time, all the way up until now. A thing that you always say, Sam, is chip away. And I think as with anything, especially something like this, chip away and keep checking in with each other, because I think that keeps the momentum going, and keep, even if you just do two things. Yeah. Even if you do 2 things that week, it keeps that momentum going. And then I think at the end of it, you just have to put it out there, which is where we are now. I deliberate and can tweak on final things, but now it's come to the point where, you just have to put it out there. So that's exactly what we've done. And I think with the putting out there, the caveat is marketing.
Yeah.
And so, you have to just come up with some ideas and keep trying and keep, putting it out there to promote it and just experiment. I think marketing, even though I've done it for the business, for me personally, you think, oh, it's this sole project of mine. I'm a bit shy about talking about it. You do feel a reluctance. I'm excited to share it, but I feel nervous about sharing it. And I just got to a point where I have to just do it now. I just have to share
the
it.
Buzz.
Yeah, you have to just create the buzz, because ultimately, I think it'll be a wonderful book. I think it'll make people feel really happy. Abby's illustrations are so colorful and beautiful.
Yeah.
It's a shame not to shout out about it. So whatever you create, shout out about it.
Yeah, and go for it. I think thinking about the amount of work involved can sometimes make it scary, but just don't think about it, because it's amazing what the human body can do. And like Sam said, chip away at it as you go, but just go for it. Why not?
Why not?
No, you've done incredibly well. You should both be very proud.
Thank you.
Just seeing, because I it was probably every month I'd see a flicker of what was I'd always be around when the calls were happening and go upstairs, so I didn't really listen in too much. But just seeing it come to life is unbelievable. From seeing what Diana wrote out, to kind of text, to then seeing the initial characters, to then seeing the backgrounds, to then just the flow of a book. There is quite a few pages in the book. It's not kind of 8 pages. There's how many pages? Maybe 28, 29?
Yeah, 24 pages.
So that's a lot of work, and a lot of transitions between stages, and even seeing where do you put the text and the process about that, and kind of figuring that out. It's been amazing. Can't wait to see, and I'm sure you guys are the same, see a physical copy.
Yes.
Can't wait.
Of it in your hands.
Oh, very soon we'll be able to do that. I really can't wait.
So with that in mind, where can people connect with you both? I'd love to chat about the van, Abby. I think we keep that for another time.
Yeah, we've gone over time massively.
What is the best place for people to connect with you both personally and to do with the book? And I know there's a free image that can be downloaded.
Absolutely.
So you might explain that for colouring in purposes.
Yeah. So find everything about the book on www.bighairparade.com.
Big, no the.
So just bighairparade.com.
Nice.
That has a link to my Instagram and Abby's Instagram at Hobbins with 3 B's.
Weird, I know.
Always. And you can sign up to a newsletter there, where you can find a colouring page that you and your kids can do, and details on the class, the Carnival costume drawing class on Zoom that we'll be doing on the 30th. And the book pre-order will also be up there.
Nice. And I'm sure there'll be future classes after that as well, and lots of kind of fun stuff happening over the months ahead, because I guess the book is done. The journey of getting it out there is going to start now and from kind of August onwards. So there'll be lots of exciting things. So if you're listening, make sure to go on the website, subscribe to the newsletter. There isn't an Instagram at the moment, but maybe there will be one in the future. Who knows? But yeah, I guess sign up. And it's been a pleasure chatting to you both about the book.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you.
So, how did the podcast go? What did you learn? If you'd like to find out more, check out creativejunglecompany.com or at creativejungleco on Instagram. You'll see our creative kits, previous podcast episodes, and all our blogs on creativity and creative thinking. If you'd like to leave a review, we'd very much appreciate it, but we really hope you have a colourful and creative week.